Hi, I'm Vanessa Worthington from Art of Floating, and we are on our podcast Beyond Floating. And my special guests today are Ken and Terri and Moshe. Ken is from Quantum Floats, and Terri and Moshe, if you can tell us where you're joining us from.
We're here in Fairfield, Connecticut.
Well,
We
welcome to
are
our podcast.
we are from Connecticut.
Nice.
So we're here with
Welcome up.
Moshe and Terri, and we're going to talk a little bit about one of your experiences that you had beyond floating. That it's called our workshop. It's called the Dyad. So if you guys can just like fill us in on where it takes place and all that stuff. Ken, if you have anything to chime in, feel welcome.
I'm allowed to chime in. Yay.
Yay!
Well, I'm curious who they are and what they do and how they met. And so, Moshe, Terri, how are you guys? How about some background? Who you guys are, what you do, how you met?
Okay. I'm originally from Michigan and worked as a lawyer there. And I came out to Connecticut a few years ago for some work here. And when I came to Connecticut, I met Moshe. Both of us were single after being previously married and found each other the modern way through online. And and after being together for several years, we had been talking on and off about being married. And as we were getting more serious about that, that's how I got really interested in sharing the experience of the Dyad class together. So, what do you want to contribute?
So where I'm from, well, it depends when. I was born in Iraq, Baghdad, this little town that maybe some people heard about very recently. Then I was brought to Israel as a refugee. I spent the first year of my life living in a tent, playing with sewage. That's what you have in refugee camps. And slowly, my entire country, my family came out of this refugee situation. I went to school. I served in the Israeli army. I was a lieutenant in a commando unit. I got very badly wounded. It's right here. It's on my body. You know. Then at the age of after going to college in Jerusalem, I went to get a PhD in United States. I got a first job at Yale, and here I am. Well, let's see, 40 years later in the same place.
And what do you do now, Moshe?
Oh, I am a professor of physics. I study astrophysics. I study what's known as stellar evolution. The stars, like human beings, they are born, they reach maturity, and they die. But they die with a big explosion. We go out with a whimper. Star goes out with a big explosion, and I study these phenomena.
That's great. It's probably a whole podcast in that.
Yeah.
So a lawyer and a physicist
I can
get
give you,
together. That's
I
a relationship
I can give
made.
you a URL, like 1-800 number. I can give you a URL where you can see on YouTube some of my lectures. And
Oh, great. Okay. Well, we'll have to maybe post those.
so
So I
you
have a
want
question.
you want us to tell you about the diet?
Yeah, I'm interested in like what you guys think because you've done relationships before. You've been in your prior relationships and now you're together and I'm assuming that you've gone through some trials and tribulations before leading up to what Vanessa had mentioned was that Dyad retreat or that
So maybe
workshop.
I start.
Sure.
So the diet takes place in a beach town, ocean town in Mexico called Puerto Vallarta. The place is really quite amazing. It's up there on the mountain overlooking the entire bay, and it immediately puts you in the right frame of mind. You really are feeling way above all the small detail and trying to see the bigger picture. Because from that house, you see a bigger picture. And it really inspires you to see the bigger picture. And all of a sudden you realize when you sit with John that the bigger picture is you and you and Terry. So you really have to understand that bigger picture. Now, John is an amazing person. John is no nonsense. You can't pull any bullshit on John. I mean, he would right away. Kid, stop it. Let's get on with the show. We don't have time. You're here for a week. Uh, we were there for a week, meeting in the morning, meeting in the afternoon, meeting in the evening. And it's really an intense time, very demanding time. It's not meant for the faint-hearted. If you don't intend to really do work, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your money, you're wasting John's time. You really need to go to a diet with the full intention of work. It's hard work. It's not. Of course, Puerto Vallarta, when you go out for dinner and you go out to the beach, is beautiful. But when you sit down with John, you're really committed to really understand what's happening. And more important, how do we go from here? How do we learn from what we did in the past? And I spoke enough. Now your turn.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Moshe is very good. It's what was really important for me and what was really meaningful about that is it really gave me a way to see that I had my whole life, even though I had been married a very long time, I was pretty ignorant about what it meant to really be in a partnership. Moshe used to say I really kind of functioned like I was alone and a solo operator. I thought I had to do everything myself. You know, I didn't really know what it was to work with someone as a partner. And he was trying to show that to me while we were dating, but it was really helpful to sit down and have conversations and have other ways to look at it and have somebody else to talk to about it. So I could finally really see that for myself, because it was really hard for me to see it for a long time. Yeah. And I can't say that it was like a magic bullet and I got it all in 1 week, but that experience has given us something to go back to.
Yeah, I think the process is a very, very healthy process, because in the process, it's not like you are told what to do and what you've done wrong, but John is leading you, much like in the seminar, you know, or much like in the
intro.
Sorry,
right?
The rewrite. Much like in the rewrite, you have to do it yourself. If it takes you 2 months, so be it. It takes you 2 months. But the process is to really make you come up with what John already knows is supposed to happen. And if it happens a month later, so be it. But it comes from you. And I think what Terri was saying, her ability to comprehend. I told Terri, you were not married, you were incorporated, you know. It was
That's so funny.
it was a limited liability. Limited liability.
Like a sole proprietorship.
Yeah. So, more like a sole proprietor, but or you know, on a contract between, you know. So,
but the most important, it's a limited liability.
We cut our losses all the time.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I think he was smart enough to realize, you know, this is not going to work in a marriage, you know, and so I had to make some shifts in me, and because I didn't really see that. That was all I knew, and it opened the door for me to say, you know, something else is possible, and even more that I thought that somehow I wouldn't be independent, I wouldn't be a strong woman if I gave up that corporation model, and it really gave me some space to explore and see things a little differently, you know.
Yeah, my wife and I did the dyad too, but leading up to the dyad, we did marriage counseling, and then we quickly found out the dyad, and refreshingly, was not marriage counseling. It was not that, and I for one was thankful that it wasn't. So I'm interested to hear your perspective on that, because you traveled all the way up to Puerto Vallarta. You spent a week out there. You could have done marriage counseling.
Yeah. No, I think this is a very important point. I mean, really, you get to see the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is you. How do you contribute, and what do you do to contribute and to make this not a limited liability, but fully engage relationship?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's like shining a flashlight on each one.
Yeah.
But then as you shine a flashlight on each one, each of the two people, you two, each part of the dyad, you can see what that two comes together to create in reality, right?
Right.
And we had an opportunity to think about and say, okay, let's set some goals for ourselves. And what do we want to do when we go back? And that was
as a married couple. And
yeah, well, yeah, we actually hadn't agreed to get married yet.
Oh,
but
okay.
that came later. But
Okay.
this laid a foundation, you know.
Okay.
I'm sure we wouldn't have gotten there, you know, if we didn't lay some of that. I mean, I know Moshe had some serious questions about whether I could be the kind of partner he wanted because of where I was. And they were fair questions, you know. And it wasn't because I was a bad person. It's just I didn't see those things.
And it wasn't because you didn't want to commit or because, you know, Moshe was scared of commitment. It was because there was things that was like red flags and like, do I really want to do this?
Yeah.
I mean, about the foundation, I think this is really, this 1 week is foundational. It really gives you the foundation. You know, you build a house, it has to be on good foundation. And then what you do above the foundation is up to you. But also, there was a lot of sort of like, you know, in life, there are sort of like procedural tricks. Okay, you make agreements. Okay, so when you make agreement, you talk about the agreement, you said, this is what we agreed, and this is how we're going to follow. And if the agreement is broken, you stop. I think it's a very good process. People should once a week say, okay, here is what we are going to do this week. I know it's going to be a problem for you. Can we make an agreement how we go through this process? And if the agreement is broken, we discuss it. But verbalizing agreement, I think, in life of people is so important. Because look, thank God we're all not alike. I mean, if we were alike, if Terri was like me, why would I? I'm already happy. So we are not alike. We have different aspirations. We have different understanding. We come from different backgrounds. We
Very
see things.
different backgrounds.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to have agreement. That's how you negotiate life. Yeah. Everything is, you know, everything is. I don't know, maybe even conflicts because I see it this way, you see it this way. We gotta find out agreement. And I think this, for example, this procedure of let's talk about the process of making agreement, which we did in a shell wise during the meet, was very useful. I mean, it's really it's a shell for later putting into the shelled content. But in general, this concept, and there were many things like this that it was a good foundation from which later we built. I don't know, maybe we are now on the 110th floor of the house.
Okay. Oh, that house is building.
I see you using some of those thoughts even in your work discussions and your meetings. You realize, okay, it can't be just what I want. We have to see what people can come together to do. I mean, this is a concept you I think you already had some of it in place, but this gave you a way to think and talk about it more. Yeah. So, but Moshe is also correct that just there is plenty of time to just enjoy time together and to have fun. And although, yes, you know, John is very direct and he worked us, but it's fun. We laughed a lot while we were there, and we had some fun moments and went out into the town, and the folks that work at the house are great. And so it was a total experience.
But the pleasure time is very inspirational. I mean, you are on this house overlooking the bay, overlooking this big town. It's very inspiring you to see the bigger picture, breathe here, and see, yeah, what is all this about? I mean, I only have another 30 years to go. Well, what is it? What is it all about? And you realize underneath you, there's probably hundreds of thousands of people, and they're all struggling with a similar way, and really gives you the bigger picture and inspire you to think big.
That's good.
Yeah.
What was it like in the house? The accommodations, the staff, the food, the place. What was that like for the week?
I mean, it's a beautiful facility. I mean, there's artwork there, there's a beautiful garden, there's a pool. The food was great. They made everything there, baked things fresh for us. We even got to hear some music while we were there. So it was very comfortable, you know,
Right.
big walk-in showers.
Well, mind you, we were there on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, so we had a good party.
Oh, on New Year's Eve, Mexico is exploding.
Literally, fireworks.
I mean, we were here. We were here
Can you please say why it's exploding? Like, people will take it literally.
So here we are on top of the mountain, and every hotel in Puerto Vallarta has their own
Fireworks.
Yeah.
And there was a singer, a very famous singer, had a concert.
Oh yeah, there was a big rock band. We could hear down. They could see all the big visuals and the screen.
Okay. Mind you, the ticket was $3,000 for a seat at that concert, and
wow.
they had yes, some German, I think.
Yeah.
Anyhow, people came from all over the world to see him. It's a New Year's Eve thing for Puerto. So aside from a concert, which we could hear very well, was a fireworks show and a fire show, and you know, and it just was, it was just incredible. Probably the most amazing New Year's Eve.
Yeah, that was very special. But you know, if we wanted to do little side trips or something, you know, the house staff was really helpful, answered our questions, got us to and from helped us get to and from the airport. So it was really easy, which is nice. It just kept with the whole relaxing feel of the whole time.
Yeah, very, very. I don't know, hospitable people. Very hospitable, always smiling and so kind. Yeah.
But yeah, one other little story I was going to mention. One of the writings that were in as part of the class, we got to read a lot of writings about couples and dyads and that. But one of the pieces we liked so much, we put it into our wedding ceremony. You know, like 9 months later. So yeah, it was nice. It was a way to mark that for ourselves too.
Yeah.
What was it?
Yes, what was it?
Yeah, like don't let us hang.
Kahil Gibran. It was about how you have to have enough separation from your partner to really appreciate the whole of them. If you're too close, you're trying to merge in, you can't see the whole of the person. You need a little space so you can appreciate who they are kind of against the world, you know. And that was good because as two mature people, we can't merge. We don't want to merge, but we want to work in partnership at the same time appreciate each other as whole human beings.
Oh, that's good. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What recommendations or why should somebody consider going to the Dyad Retreat? What do you guys think?
Well, if you're stuck in your relationship and you want to get unstuck, go to Puerto Vallarta.
I think there's different times. I think sometimes like us, we were getting ready to like, are we going to make this step? What are we making it on? That was a perfect time. I also think that there are times later in a relationship, as Moshe said, where you feel like things need to be, you know, you need to get unstuck. You need a fresh perspective. You need to get out of your everyday life and take that bigger picture about what is this really about? Where are we going?
Like
you know, what is
remembering what you were doing, remembering why you're together.
Exactly. So I think those are later times too. The other thing is the dynamic between two people isn't always just about a couple. I mean, sometimes it can be about two business partners working together. Sometimes it might even be a parent and an adult child finding a new way to relate to each other. There are a lot of very close relationships where you're trying to carve a better foundation and a new path. And I think the kinds of things we looked at can be useful in many of those.
So what
Yeah.
you're saying is that you don't have to be a couple to go to a dyad class.
Yeah, you're right. You don't have to be a romantic couple, exactly.
Exactly. Okay.
I mean, the dyad by definition requires two,
Yeah.
but I think if you're stuck with yourself, you might as well also get it going.
Thanks. That's good.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Well, thank you very much, guys. That was a really I never had heard your dyad story, so this was a good dyad story. So thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you.
but if any of your viewers, have questions or would like to talk with me about it or whatever, they should, send you a little note, and I would be happy to answer questions.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Moshe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken. See you next time.
Thank you, Terry. See you next time.